Hi everyone, and welcome to AWS Summit San Francisco. My name's Cody Allen, and it feels kind of weird being up here on stage in front of everybody. I feel like I need to go find my laptop, turn on the webcam, and present to you with my face on the screen, because that's what we've done for the past couple years. I got the opportunity a few weeks ago to go join a lot of my teammates out in Chicago for a in-person meeting that we did that we hadn't done since the pandemic started, and it was refreshing. It was amazing because we got that face-to-face personality. We got to sit down next to each other and have those face-to-face conversations, and it was extremely refreshing. So being here and seeing everybody and meeting my teammates, meeting my peers, meeting you, my customers, is awesome. So first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us here today. Enterprise customers are turning to document-oriented databases because it's helping their developers store and query data that seamlessly evolves with their application. So today we're going to dive deep into how enterprises are managing their JSON workloads with Amazon DocumentDB. JSON's the de facto format for document databases. So we're going to start off briefly talking about its history, its purpose, and really how it's fundamentally changed the database landscape. Continuing that theme, we're going to talk about how enterprises are shifting to make purpose-built applications using purpose-built databases to include document databases and DocumentDB. Enterprises really require a high level of performance for their JSON workloads, and they need scale, and they have uncompromising requirements when it comes to a database service that supports their mission-critical applications. And we're going to go over these requirements. We're going to recognize how AWS works backwards from customers' feedback and purpose-built DocumentDB for the cloud for those enterprise customers that needed a lot more than just a standalone database service. But as you saw 2 slides ago, my name's Cody Allen. It's huge now. It's very important. I have my own slide. It's dedicated to me, so this is super important. But let's talk about that title. I've never had so many words in my job title before. I think that makes me important. Starting off with senior, that just means that I know a thing or two about a thing or two. DocumentDB specialist, that means that most of those things I know are around AWS and databases and DocumentDB, although I have been working with databases for over 2 decades now, and it makes me feel a whole lot older than I think I am. My wife loves to point out how gray my beard is getting, but I guess that comes with the territory. And finally, solutions architect, that means that I build things. Unlike my dad, who is an actual architect who built things with brick and mortar, I build things with software. We're both using building blocks, but my building blocks are things like S3 and EC2 and DocumentDB. Like I said, I've had a long journey in my career as a database enthusiast. I was a Oracle DBA, and even before that, I was an accountant, go figure. I've worked on Microsoft SQL Server as administrator. I've been a database architect. I've been a database admin. And it wasn't until about 7 years ago that I really jumped headfirst into the document database world. Well, as a relational database enthusiast, why? Why did I jump into that document database world? Well, it's the same reason enterprises have made it one of the most popular database models available. Everyone knows JSON. It has dominance as one of the most widely used languages available today. It has a simple markup, easy to reformat, and its very, very lightweight composition makes it easily transferable from one system to another. As enterprises have shifted their architectures away from the monolith, where you have a single server with a lot of services on it, a lot of applications on it that are doing everything, they're now moving over to microservices, and those microservices talk. We're utilizing that lightweight composition to make it talk from one system to another. Very, very lightweight. Again, enterprises are using the advantage of that JSON because it allows them to move faster and be more portable. Chances are, when 2 modern applications are talking today, they're doing that in JSON. Nearly everything in modern application talks JSON or has the ability to talk JSON. The application, the process, the methods, the functions, it's literally JSON all the way. And if there's anybody in the audience whose name is Jason, we're going to be talking about you a lot. I'm saying JSON, not Jason, but just pretend that you're the focus of today's conversation. But what if JSON was the native format for the database? What if we could store that JSON directly in the database, allowing that enriched manipulation within the database itself? Well, document databases allow these processes, these applications, methods, and functions to store and retrieve that JSON within the database without changing it. There's no transformation. There's no ETL, extraction, transformation, loading process. There's no extra steps that require extra processes, extra resources, and ultimately cause more latency for your end users and a lower end user experience. Now, this was the revolution that was driven by MongoDB back in August of 2009 when they released the very first version of the MongoDB database. And that was the breakthrough. The JSON format is actually stored within the database itself. It's a great idea. Document databases, like I just said, it makes it easier for developers to store and query their data in a database by using the exact same document model that they're using in their application code currently. Flexible, semi-structured, hierarchy document structure. It really allows the developer to evolve with their application needs. Working in relational databases, I've worked on migrations, I've worked on net new applications, greenfield applications where we're starting from scratch, where we tried to make JSON or XML or some kind of unstructured format work in a relational database system. You can do it. You can store blobs, you can store XML, you can store JSON, but that's not what it's meant to do. It's not meant to hold those type of values. And what always happens is we start with our data model, and the data model drives what our application will look like, which ultimately drives what that user experience is going to be like. With this flexible structure of JSON documents stored natively within a document database, you get to start with the application, you get to start with the users and work backwards, and the data model is less of a concern because of that flexibility. Well, AWS looked at what was available. They looked at the document database services that were available, and we said, this is wonderful, we love it. But we have enterprise customers, and enterprise customers want a database solution that does everything, that does all this stuff that we talk about, but it needs to do that at scale. They need a managed service that removes that heavy lifting, the complexity. It removes that guesswork of running their own workload. AWS customers want to innovate faster by focusing their valuable IT resources on building modern applications that differentiate their business, that improve their end users' experience. They don't want to self-manage their own databases. And enterprise solutions are never standalone. They're built and they're intended to be integrated with other enterprise solutions and services. Internally, we say there's no compression algorithm for experience, and that's because you can't learn certain lessons until you've gotten to certain milestones in scale. You can't do scale unless you've done scale, and you can't do enterprise unless you've done enterprise. At AWS, we start with our customers. We listen to what they need and we work backwards from that. And our customers told us that they needed an enterprise solution for native JSON databases. Well, customers are choosing AWS over any other provider because it has a lot more functionality. It has the largest and most vibrant community of customers and partners. We have the most proven operational and security experience, and the business is growing at a faster clip, especially in artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, and serverless computing. We obsess over building what our customers ask for, and we have over 200 service offerings that meet the requirements our customers are asking for an enterprise solution. You can see this differences in databases where we have over 15 purpose-built database options. We have the most complete family of purpose-built databases to give customers the right tool, the right job. We do this so that they can spend less money, be more productive, and ultimately change their customers' experience. I want to focus on that 200 services because it didn't used to be that large. As a matter of fact, when I first started working on this presentation, I had 175 on there, and I was way off. I had to get that edited and bring it up to that 200. We're constantly releasing new features. Before I joined the DocumentDB team, I was actually an enterprise solution architect. My title only had 3 words, so I think that means it was easier. It wasn't easier. reInvent, I loved reInvent. Just like you, every year, reInvent, we release a lot of new services. We release a lot of new features, and I would geek out over it. I would find out about all these new things. I'd want to jump in the console the very next day, start building, start using it, have a lot of fun with it. But reInvent was also the scariest time of the year for me. I still remember in reInvent of 2019 where a buddy of mine that didn't work at AWS sent me a message and asked me about Amazon Detective. He said, oh man, Amazon Detective sounds really good. Y'all just announce it. Can you give me a little bit more information on it? Amazon what? Detective. Oh, yeah, sure. I'm thinking it's the Sherlock Holmes department of our support. I have no idea what this is. Turns out it's a real service. It's a service that lets you analyze, investigate, and identify potential security risks in your AWS account. That's awesome. What else did I miss? And also, true story, the first time I took my solutions architect certification test, they asked me a couple questions about Mechanical Turk. I thought they were messing with me. Like, no way do we have a service called Mechanical Turk. We have a service called Mechanical Turk. Go look it up. It's interesting. If we look at things through the database lens, over 625,000 databases have been migrated to AWS. The cool thing about this, though, is this is only counting the ones that have used a particular tool of ours called Database Migration Service. As a customer, I have led multiple migration efforts to AWS. as in the commercial sector, and public sector, and even in government sector. And the reason we migrated was the same reason that customers are migrating to AWS today. They want the performance of a commercial grade database, but they want the pricing and friendliness of an open engine. They want the ability to manage or leverage a managed service to take care of that heavy lifting, or they want to get away from the complexity of that old guard database provider. So let's focus on how we did this with a couple database engines, specifically with Amazon DocumentDB. Now, like I mentioned, before I was promoted to AWS employee, I was an AWS customer. And I got to experience this firsthand, and it's one of the reasons that I felt really, really privileged to join the team here. AWS listens to their customer. I worked with a solution architect. When I was at a previous company, I had an AWS solution architect that worked with me. And whenever we had a challenge, whenever an issue, the question was why? It was never, well, we have this broad features of services that can solve every single problem you can possibly have. Here they are. Here's a list of 200. Maybe it was 175 back then. It was always about why. What is the problem you're trying to solve? What is the business objective, right? Technology is not the solution. Technology is a means to an end to reach your business objective. That's why AWS spent several years building its own database engine in Amazon Aurora, a MySQL and Postgres compatible service. Several times faster than the performance you get off of typical high-end implementations of the community editions. Customers have been fed up with what had been available for the past couple decades, especially the high cost, the lock-in, the punitive licensing terms, and even the complexity of old guard databases, and they asked us to solve that, to build something for them. We did this with key spaces as well. That allows customers to run their Cassandra workloads on AWS. You get to use the exact same Cassandra query language, you get to use the exact same Apache 2.0 license drivers, and the same tools that you're using today, but now on key spaces. And that's why we built DocumentDB, scalable, highly durable, fully managed database service for operating those mission-critical MongoDB workloads. Enterprises don't want to settle on a database that does a lot of things okay, but none of them really, really well. Like I said, I've tried to stuff JSON into a Microsoft SQL server. I did it. It worked. Well, I use the term worked loosely, but it fit, right? Enterprises are moving away from relational databases for every single workload, and they're really choosing the right database that fits their app's needs. The breakthrough again with document databases is that you can store that JSON natively within the database itself. But our customers wanted more. We built DocumentDB from scratch to be cloud native. Well, why? Well, we felt it needed to have separation of compute and storage. What we found is that customers have really been constrained by their existing database options, where they had to force the entire environment all at once when all they wanted to do was scale storage or they wanted to scale compute. We learned from our years of experience building other database services that this separation is good. This is what customers want. Decoupling those layers allows you to scale that compute and memory layer for each one of your instances up or down within minutes. And that storage layer is going to automatically grow for you with no interaction in 10 gigabyte segments all the way up to 64 terabytes. You don't need to pre-provision anything. You don't need to add any excess storage to prepare for future growth. Now, when writing to DocumentDB, we only persist to write-ahead logs, whereas other document database solutions require full buffer page syncs. What that means is because of this optimization, which does not compromise durability at all, DocumentDB is typically faster than traditional databases. And you can scale a DocumentDB cluster out to 15 total readers to handle millions of reads per second. This separation of storage compute gives you that functionality, it gives you that performance, the scalability, and it gives you the availability without managing that underlying infrastructure. There's no upfront investments required, and you simply pay for the capacity that you use. There's a lot of requirements. Enterprise customers have very strict requirements for database services if it's going to support that mission-critical workload. They need a service that's easy to administer and doesn't require a lot of manual interaction and babysitting. They need that service to meet and exceed the performance expectations of their end users and customers, and it absolutely must do all this at scale. And just like we consider security job zero at AWS, which means it's more important than any number one priority that we have, our customers have non-compromising requirements about their security and compliance. They have industry certifications like SOC 1 and HIPAA that they have to adhere to. But with all this, the service must avoid unnecessary costs. It has to meet all of these requirements without overspending. The enterprises really need to take control of their costs and continuously optimize their workload while building that modern application. So let's focus on each one of these requirements, and we'll actually hear feedback from our customers about the expectations they have for DocumentDB. What's cool about all this is everything that you see here in quotes is actual feedback that we receive from our customers. This is the feedback that our customers have told our DocumentDB service team. 90% of what we build at AWS comes directly from working backward from what our customers ask for. The entire DocumentDB service team obsesses over this feedback. We use it to build what our customers want. And that's a key differentiator with AWS, is it ensures that we're building what customers actually need, not what we think they need. I'm a sucker for all-in-one tools. Swiss Army knives, Leathermans, things that do multiple things at once. And lucky for me, there's a pretty large online retailer that I can search for these things and easily order. My wife hates Amazon. Over the pandemic, I'm sure that we got 2 to 3 orders a day, maybe even more than that. But that's a situation, not an issue. That's a situation that I'm sure a lot of people had. I found the perfect multi-tool. This thing was the epitome. It was the pinnacle of multi-tools you can get. It was a hammer. And inside the hammer was a screwdriver and a pair of scissors. I mean, how cool is that? If I had an emergency IKEA situation and I needed to hammer in some nails and screw in some shelves and cut open that extra bag of parts in record time, I'd be set. Like for the DAT Olympics and the DAT achievements, that was it. I could do all of this in no time. Only problem was the hammer was kind of short. It had to be. It had to fit in this little black satchel that sat on my waist. So the hammer was a little bit short, and the screwdriver, it wasn't actually a screwdriver. It was a bit that fit in the head of the hammer, and so it couldn't really fit in those tight spots very well. And then the scissors, well, there was no springing action. They're really, really short, so you would cut, and then you'd have to open them up. And it's hard to do that one-handed, so to use them, I'm sitting here doing this little number, and it's really hard to do that while you're holding the bag of what you try to open. It's comical. Ask my wife, she'll attest to that. So I was more mesmerized in what this tool could do. But what happened is when I did have that emergency IKEA situation, which I actually had one of those on Sunday because I had forgotten to hang shelf in my daughter's room, I would go get the actual tools. I'd go get the full-size hammer that I could leverage. I'd go get the screwdriver that could fit in that tight space. I'd go get the scissors that didn't make me do one of these numbers. I could actually use them one-handed. So the multi-tool was neat, but I had to make sacrifices in order to use it because it couldn't do many things. It could do many things okay, but not a single one of those really well. Now, some service providers, they're going to do that. They're going to build solutions that do many things okay, but like I said, enterprises, they don't want to settle for a database that does many things okay, but not one single thing really well. They want something that's purpose-built to meet their needs, and they need it to be managed. Managing databases on your own can be difficult. It can be tedious. While sharing with us their needs for administration, customers told us they wanted the ability to automatically rotate their secrets to control access to their DocumentDB resources. They were already leveraging Amazon CloudWatch for logging, but they wanted to take it further. They wanted to look at our slow query profiler logs. And even though backups were on by default, which is something that all enterprises should do regardless, they wanted to take that further. They wanted the ability to manage all of those DocumentDB database backups in one place with AWS backups. So that's what we built. We integrated with AWS backups. Like I mentioned earlier, many customers, especially those in regulated industries, they require central management of their protection and compliance across multiple AWS services. With this launch, you can centrally manage and govern the database snapshots from DocumentDB alongside other supported AWS services. And just like we integrated with AWS Backup, we integrated with AWS Secrets Manager, allowing customers to rotate those secrets safely. Using temporary credentials is best practice. It should be standard practice. So now, with just a few clicks, customers can configure Secrets Manager to rotate those credentials automatically, turning those typical long-term credentials into a short temporary credential without disrupting their application. I still remember the days of config files that had hard-coded username and passwords. Sometimes they were unencrypted. We won't talk about that. Or environmental variables. And whenever you had to change those, well, you had to update them, which caused a service restart, which caused an application outage. And as a former DBA, I have caused my fair share of application outages. I know I've caused at least one per quarter. With this feature now, you can protect your application services, your IT resources without that upfront investment and ongoing maintenance costs of doing your own secrets management infrastructure and without disrupting the application. DocumentDB is going to simplify those administration tasks. It's purpose-built cloud-native architecture gives you high availability with multiple copies of your data across multiple availability zones. And we're going to automatically attempt to recover your instances in a healthy AZ with no data loss. And since enterprise applications are never standalone, requiring that tight integration with other enterprise services, you get that with integration with Amazon CloudWatch, AWS Backup, and AWS Secrets Manager. Built-in backups by default, automatic patching, and then the ability to monitor and alert on key metrics, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. DocumentDB lets you focus those IT resources on building applications that differentiate your business and improve your customers' experience. Customers like FINRA, they're processing over 4 million filings and filing attachments per year. They used to require specialized application DBAs just to handle their relational databases. Now they have functional engineers that can maintain their the DocumentDB data store without any additional overhead. Beyond administration, enterprises needed to scale or need to design for scale, elasticity, and that future state. Now, DocumentDB is already going to offer a wide variety of compute instances with various amounts of CPU and RAM that are well suited for many use cases. And like I said earlier, can scale out to millions of reads per second with up to 15 read replicas. But our customers wanted to scale globally as well. They told us that they wanted to be in Sydney to improve customer-facing workloads. They had customers in Tokyo, and they wanted to reduce application latency and improve the overall customer experience. They absolutely had to be in London for data sovereignty policies, and they were taking on large consolidation projects that needed them to deploy in Singapore and Paris. And that's where we focus our deployments. Working backward from where our customers needed to be, we've deployed to 17 regions globally to include AWS GovCloud and I believe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Milan. We're not stopping there. We're continuing to look for more regions to expand into based on where our customers need to be. When you design your applications and workload to run on AWS, you have the flexibility in selecting a technology infrastructure that's closest to your primary target of users. As we continue to expand and increase our global footprint for DocumentDB, our focus is allow you to quickly spin up those resources where you need them, as you need them. You retain complete control and ownership over the region which your data is physically located. That means that it's easier to meet those regional compliance and data residency requirements. And spoiler alert, we'll talk here in just a moment about how you can actually use regional replication to help with your redundancy and fault tolerance. Regardless of how much data you have, you can scale up to 16 instances, single writer, 15 readers in minutes with DocumentDB. That native cloud architecture separating compute and storage means that you don't have to copy over your entire storage volume from one node to another whenever you're trying to scale out, scale up, or recover. Even though most enterprises have really optimized their internal networks, having fiber connections for everything, even transferring a 500 gigabyte data set over a dedicated 1 gigabit per second line take over an hour. For customers that have very, very strict RTO requirements or are undergoing a scaling event where they need help to help with that workload immediately, that's a long time to wait. Like I said, the storage layer is going to grow automatically without any interaction from you. There's no interface, there's no command line, there's no action required to expand your storage as your data grows. DocumentDB is going to grow that automatically up to those 64 TB. By multiplying the ability to scale their instances in minutes, the ability to do automatic backups, and then the point-in-time recovery, which we'll talk about later, customers like Iron.O recognize productivity gains across their entire organization by switching to DocumentDB. Now, being multi-region isn't just about scalability. It's also about durability. Our customers told us that they had very strict RTO and RPO requirements, and they needed cross-region replication. But what's so cool is they said, well, not only do we need it to be there for these RTO and RPO, we want it to do work. If our data is going to sit in another region, we want it to be available to help lower the latencies for our customers close to that secondary region. And diving deeper, we also heard that our customers needed to do operations across one or more documents within a DocumentDB cluster. They had a need for atomic, consistent, isolated, and durable, commonly called ACID, transactions in their workloads. Spoiler alert, I told you it was coming, global clusters with DocumentDB. This is going to provide disaster recovery for region-wide outages and enables low latency global reads. It's going to use a fast storage-based replication of data from your primary to secondary. The compute instances here don't participate in this replication at all, freeing them up to serve your application. In other words, there's no performance impact on your workload for enabling global clusters. And the unlikely event of a regional outage or a degradation of service, you can promote a secondary region to full read-write capabilities in less than 1 minute. You can have a total of 5 regions acting as secondary with as many as 16 instances in each one of those regions. And just like your compute instances within a DocumentDB cluster don't all have to be the same size, the number and type of instances in your primary and secondary don't need to be the same either. You can spin up a secondary region with a single instance and scale up to 16 total instances as needed. This gives you the ability to deploy a multi-region setup at a fraction of the cost of other document database providers. This works the other way too. You can actually run your secondary regions completely headless with no compute instances at all. That's the extent of the separation of compute and storage that we have with DocumentDB. Early on, the idea of document databases is that they were purely focused on high data volume and high traffic. You got the benefits of that JSON document, that JSON model, but at the cost of being asymmetrical. If you needed that rigid ability to do multiple transactions at once, well, you use the RDBMS for that. You use a relational database for that. We used to think the Earth was at the center of the universe too, but luckily things have changed. To recap, atomic, that means that whatever operation we're going to perform, it has to be all or nothing. If my bank, for example, has a 3-step process for taking $100 out of my bank account to pay a $100 bill, and it fails on step 2, if it's not atomic, I just lost $100 and my bill wasn't paid. That operation has to be consistent, meaning that if there's rules to follow, it follows those rules. So, for example, if my bank had a rule that said my account was not allowed to drop in the negative, which would have really helped me in college, it would follow those rules or that transaction would be aborted. And that operation has to be isolated. Isolated means that if now mom and dad decide to send me $100 each to make up for my negative account balance, that they're not going to get in the way of each other. That both of those transactions are going to go through. I'm going to have $200 and I'm going to live like a king in college. It's going to be wonderful. You can see I'm pulling on a lot of personal experience here. And finally, durable. That means that those operations have to be committed no matter what. If those deposits of $200 came in and they weren't committed and the bank lost power, the server was rebooted, they're lost. That money's gone, I'm in the negative, and I don't get Taco Tuesday anymore. A real tragedy. Again, a lot of personal experience here. Like automatic backups, ACID transactions are non-negotiable in enterprise solutions. DocumentDB with support for ACID transaction means you don't have to worry about those challenges. You have the ability to perform transaction across multiple documents, across multiple statements, across multiple collections, and even across multiple databases. Again, you're getting that 6-way replication across 3 AZs. That means that you have 6 copies of your data redundantly stored across multiple discrete data centers with redundant power, redundant networking, redundant connectivity. We're gonna set that storage apart in 10 gigabyte segments across multiple disks. And just like our compute instances, our compute layer, the storage layer is self-healing. The data blocks and disks are continually scanned for errors and they're repaired automatically. And since these segments are 10 gigabytes, it takes a lot less time to repair a 10 gigabyte segment than a 100 gigabyte segment, for example. So your mean time to recovery is even lower. Now backups, you've noticed that I've focused on backups once or twice so far. Having played a production DBA for much of my early career, backups hold a special place in my heart, much like a splinter holds a special place in a carpenter's hand. Backups shouldn't be optional, right? If you are a DBA, if you've played a DBA or you were assigned to be the DBA, because that happens a lot, you pick the developer that knows how to spell database and he becomes your DBA, you've probably had that gut-wrenching moment where you didn't know if your system had backups or you didn't know how recent those backups were, or even worse, you didn't know what the state of that backup is in. I've been in that situation where I've tried to restore a backup and it was corrupt. It didn't work. That's terrifying. With these backups, they're automatically streamed to Amazon S3, which gives you those 11 nines of durability. On the compute layer, you get the benefits of automatic patching, you get the benefits of setup, and then you have the ability to provision to increase your availability by adding more instances. And finally, with those global clusters, you can deploy up to 16 instances per region and up to 5 regions with no performance impact to your workload and typical latency of under 1 second. Security is non-negotiable. Anymore, encryption is standard. Our customers are telling us that their internal security teams will not let them deploy applications at all to their end users without encryption enabled. And our customers also told us that they needed to have the ability to create custom roles for their DocumentDB resources. We're seeing customers create multi-tenant databases, and they want to be very, very strict and very precise, very surgical about which application user has access to which namespace, to a database or collection. We also heard that our customers were using third-party tools to grab metrics about their DocumentDB resources, but they really wanted that tight integration of another enterprise service that's managed for them. Efficient logging practices are fundamental. You have to have those for modern applications, and our customers just wanted that to be easier to implement. Even though DocumentDB supported built-in roles, like I said, customers wanted more, and we released these user-defined roles. These user-defined roles can be scoped to very granular resources within your DocumentDB clusters. This is going to help you simplify that user authorization in DocumentDB. So for example, you have the ability to provide strict read-only access to a very specific namespace, a very specific collection. And with the ability to enable DDL auditing or data definition logging, all of this natively integrated with CloudWatch, by the way, you can see events such as when a new role was created, a user was dropped, or even failed login attempts. A log is captured anytime somebody creates, modifies, and removes a database object like a user or a role. All of these authentication, authorization, and management events are exported to CloudWatch, which means that you can analyze, you can monitor, you can archive, you can alert on these. There's no additional cost to enabling monitoring on DocumentDB. You're only paying the standard rates for Amazon CloudWatch for where the logs are stored. With tight integration with services like CloudWatch, you don't need to use primitive tools anymore. You don't need your own scripts. You don't need a third-party tool. You don't need to be a self-created tool to monitor this workload. You don't have to balance that log selectivity with the high storage costs of managing your own logging tool, and there's no need to build a complex solution yourself. And with features like alarming in CloudWatch, you can have notifications, even automated responses to whatever metrics that you set up. Using CloudWatch dashboard, you can aggregate and correlate logs and metrics together, really giving you that complete operational visibility. This one is fun. I love this one. We just announced this last week or the week before. We're constantly releasing new features here, but Performance Insights, it's currently in preview. If you go into your DocumentDB console, you should see it there. You can enable this by your instance. Since we released it, we're already hearing great feedback for customer. This was actually released for Amazon Aurora in preview back in August of 2017 and has since been released to RDS for MariaDB, RDS for MySQL, Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server, and even Oracle. Our experience working with those enterprise customers across these 200 different services told us this is a useful tool, and we're happy to announce it for DocumentDB now. If you haven't used it, it's a performance tuning and monitoring feature, and the purpose of it is to give you a chance to quickly assess your workload and find out when and where to take action. It gives you that centralized dashboard, that easy to read dashboard, so that your developers and your admins can really see in an easy to understand way what's affecting your workload. You have the ability to see currently running queries, your high running queries. You get the ability to identify those top performance bottlenecks that are hitting your application. Like I said, I'm thrilled for this release just because I've navigated those waters of finding tools, creating scripts, creating tools, creating exports, doing all these steps just to get that central pane of glass look at my database solution. Every position I've ever been as a DBA, that's what I want. I want that single thing that I can pop up on the second monitor to constantly watch. Within the console, at the cluster level, you still get the ability to see your CloudWatch metrics. You can still monitor your CPU usage. You can monitor your memory. You can monitor your CRUD operations, disk I/O, throughput, networking. You can monitor this. Performance Insight takes us even further by taking care of all those metrics and values that are going to help you identify any kind of bottlenecks that you're having with your workload. Companies like Catalyze, who have been using Amazon Aurora for our performance insights for Amazon Aurora, they've told us that not only has this saved them a lot of time for diagnosing queries, it's actually saved them money, because now they can monitor their workload, find out what's going on, troubleshoot it, and they don't have to increase the size of their instances unnecessarily to accommodate for something that they didn't know was going on. My favorite quote is from a company, Citizen Me, that told us they were using performance insights for Aurora MySQL, and they said it saved their bacon. Bad index selection was happening, it was causing a performance issue, and normally it would have taken them days, if not weeks, to troubleshoot it. And again, empathetic, I've been there. But with the visibility that performance insights gave them, now they can troubleshoot those in minutes. So a whole lot more performant with that. Backups, yes, backups again. You can tell I'm traumatized by a backup experience early in my career. My therapist and I are working through it. We're making progress. I think we're going to make it. But when we talk about backups here, we're not talking about how they're automatically enabled. You know that. What we're talking about is the ability to extend those backups for 35 days, giving you that granular ability to do point-in-time recovery to the specific hour, minute, and second covered by that backups. There's no third-party tools, no scripts, no integrated services like AWS Lambda are needed to do this. This is built into the DocumentDB console. Our customers told us that they needed a simpler, managed, secure ways to get their backups as quickly as possible, so you have this ability with DocumentDB. Even though your DocumentDB resources are only accessible within the virtual private cloud or VPC that they're stored, DocumentDB resources are automatically encrypted over the wire with TLS and encrypted at rest through native integration with AWS Key Management Service, KMS. With KMS, you get features such as limited risk of a compromised data key. You get better performance for encrypting large data sets, easier management, and centralized audit and access of key activity. At another company I've worked for a lot of companies, it seems. Some of these are the same companies. The company I worked for before, as a DBA, I was tasked with creating the certificate infrastructure for all of our data stores because of a security requirement. Okay, now listen, I'm an architect. I love building things. I love working with customers. I love solving problems, but I'm a DBA at heart. I'll always be a DBA. And DBAs live in the trenches. We supported product releases at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. We drop everything to troubleshoot production workloads. It means that I'm a realist. That means I'm very black and white. I'm very binary. And I can tell you honestly that you do not want your DBA creating your certificate infrastructure. Trust me, I've done it. I wouldn't recommend it. A couple years ago, I got to see Corey Quinn. He's a creator of a website called Last Week with AWS. If you haven't checked it out, it's a great site. I got to see him talk in person, and he had the greatest t-shirt on it. It said, "Encrypt everything, unless it's hard." Building and managing a certificate solution is hard, just like building and managing your own logging solution is hard. Native integration with AWS KMS and CloudWatch simplifies this entire process while delivering those requirements that you have. Now, AWS does serve a variety of customers, including those in regulated industries. We have a shared responsibility model. It's going to enable customers to effectively control their risk management and their IT environment. DocumentDB is assessed by third-party auditors as part of multiple AWS compliance programs, such as SOC 1, 2, and 3, PCI DSS, HIPAA BAA. And these reports are all available within your AWS console through the AWS Artifacts service. Cost. This is a fun one. Yet another company. This one is a separate company. We had to plan our IT purchases 1 to 2 years in advance. That was just the nature of the contract that we had with the company. And it would be an understatement to tell you how difficult it was to plan your infrastructure costs 2 years out. That's how it worked, so that's what we did. This particular year, our program management office came to us and said, "Hey, we have funds left over, a lot of funds, and we need them to be spent like today, or we lose them. Say no more. I can spend your money. I've seen me do it before. Absolutely, I will do that." So I go to the server manufacturer's website, and if you haven't done this before, you go there and you pick out the form and factor that you want. You know, it's rack mountable server. What do you want it to have? And there's drop downs. There's drop downs for CPU. There's drop downs for RAM. You put the number of hard drives that you want in, and like the RAM drop down starts at 16 gigs and it goes to 128, and then it goes to 1 terabyte. The further you get down the list, the more expensive these things are. And man, let me tell you, I lived at the bottom of these drop-down lists. I was grabbing things left and right. I have no idea what a network daughter board is, but we need 2 of those. Let's just deck this thing out. We got the absolute best stuff that you can get. Well, that's not true. We got the most expensive stuff that you can get. I'm assuming it was the best. I don't know. Many months later, this server arrives because unfortunately I'm sure they've never built something like this before. They didn't have it sitting on the shelf. They had to customize it. So many months later, the server arrives. It's glorious. I open it up and I swear it's glowing. It's so beautiful. Every single RAM slot in that thing is filled. All the disks are there. There's those network daughter boards, whatever they do. I have no idea. This server had more RAM capacity than our production servers had storage capacity. It was amazing. So first thing we do is we rack it up and we throw our database server software on there. And I start running production workload tests against it. And this thing screams. I mean, it's unbelievable. We are outperforming our production servers while using less than 5% CPU and using less than 5% RAM. It was unbelievable. I mean, like I said, this was the fastest server I've ever seen. I could probably pick it up on eBay for, oh gosh, I don't even want to think about that, for a lot less. The point here is that making cost no object, we were to obtain this extreme performance, but that's an unnecessary cost. It's not profitable. It doesn't scale. Enterprises have to meet their business needs without overspending. Now, as a solution architect, I work with DocumentDB customers to right-size their document resources. I want to make sure that they're not overutilized, which means that they might have performance issues. And I want to make sure that they're not over-provisioned so that they're not overspending. When we released Graviton 2 instances for EC2, our customers saw a better cost per performance ratio. They saw their regular workloads were getting much more efficient at a lower cost, and they challenged us to do the same thing. They recognized that if we can introduce Graviton 2 instances to our compute layer in DocumentDB, they would see that same price performance, same if not better, and it'd lower their cost. So that's what we did. In November of last year, we introduced the Graviton 2 instances for our customers, and we're already seeing up to 30% price per performance improvement. Now, customers are also going to get the best performance per watt of energy use. And that means that for enterprises looking to lower their carbon imprint, Graviton 2 processors are more energy efficient. My favorite thing about this, though, is while offering this better price per performance ratio, we did this while offering them at a 5% lower cost. Price reductions are a part of business for us. We've had 111 so far at AWS. And we're expecting to continue to lower prices this year and many years to come. Our pricing philosophy is to work relentlessly to take costs out of our infrastructure and pass those savings back along to our AWS customers in the form of lower prices. It's easy to lower prices, but it's much harder to afford to lower those prices. And it's something that we try really hard to do in all of our businesses. In January of this year, we also launched a free trial for DocumentDB. We want all of our customers, doesn't matter if you're enterprise or an individual, to feel confident when they sign up for DocumentDB. We feel that you'll love this and it enables your teams to really start testing and interacting with DocumentDB. This purpose-built design of the separation of compute and storage means that you don't have to scale everything at once. You can scale the compute layer and the storage layer independently. That means that you don't have to over-provision any one of those layers, overspending or wasting resources. Enterprises need that granular level of control. They need to make sure that they're spending resources on what differentiates their business, improves that customer experience. They don't need to be giving their DBAs carte blanche to go build the most amazing server in existence. We've talked about the 6 copies of your data across the availability zones. You don't pay anything additional for that storage replication. That's built in, just like the self-healing. And even though DocumentDB resources are listed by the hour, you're actually charged by the second. So if you need to add in another larger instance to your cluster to do maybe a one-off aggregation query that could use a little bit more horsepower, a little bit more RAM, and let's say that the transaction takes 11 minutes and 47 seconds to run, and then you turn it off, you will be billed for 11 minutes and 47 seconds. There's no licensing cost to use DocumentDB. It's a pay-as-you-go model. You spin up the type and number of instances you need, you turn them off, you resize them, you modify them as you need to. Additionally, customers of enterprise database solutions, they need operational excellence. Things happen. You know, we do need to call support. We do need help from time to time, me probably more than others. But you need to know that if you ever run into a problem, that it's going to be supported by a strong team. It's going to be supported by a proven set of mechanisms, from general enterprise support, on-call excellence, large-scale event management. Transparent communications is key. You need a center of excellence process. You need threat management. You need a solid SLA to back up all of these. Support for DocumentDB is covered by AWS support plans, and you can easily see those features, the SLAs and pricing for that on our public-facing support plan page. Woot, another company that played a pretty important part of my life in college, especially when that $200 came in, they recognized 82% cost savings on their infrastructure, which included licensing costs, by migrating their document database solution to DocumentDB with minimal changes to their drivers and applications. Innovation is central to AWS's approach. The customer is always at the center of what we do. We believe that innovation starts there, and we work backwards to invent on their behalf. DocumentDB is one of the fastest growing database services on AWS, and this is 100% because we adhere to this approach. We listen to our customers, build the features they want, and we continue to do that with a lot of energy. Our roadmap over the past few years shows that this continued investment and ultimately focuses on what our customers are asking for. I've been a customer of DocumentDB, a user of DocumentDB, since it was far left back there in January of 2019. We were migrating a very large mission critical workload. It was the central workload for our entire library of applications over to DocumentDB from a self-managed, Cody managed, we'll say, system to AWS. In the past 6 months, we've released more features that I'm excited about than I think I've ever seen. Graviton 2 instances. We have global clusters. We've created a custom JDBC driver that allows you to see your JSON documents with business intelligence tools like Tableau. And then our release with performance insights. We've released to 17 regions and we're not stopping there. But the great thing about all this too is while we've been creating all these key features, we're continuing to release support for operators and aggregators and APIs that our customers need to meet their compatibility needs. So for example, in October of last year, we released geospatial query capabilities. AWS released 80 significant features and services in 2011. 2012, they released 160. In 2016, they released 1,017 custom services and features. And last year, they released 3,087. You can see why reInvent was such a stressful time as an enterprise solution architect. We're not stopping. We're going to continue to release those. Our enterprise customers have invested in DocumentDB to be their scalable, highly durable, and fully managed database service for operating those mission-critical MongoDB workloads. We're going to continue to invest in new features. We're going to innovate our customers' behalf, and we're going to work backwards to build the features that they're asking for. It's all about choosing the right tool for the right job, right? You don't want to shove everything into a database solution because that's what you have. There's not a one-size-fit-all database. Maybe you're currently using a relational database for JSON workloads and you're having to do these ETL processes to get the data in there, or even worse, maybe you're storing that JSON document non-natively. Maybe you have a modern application that could really use the high functionality of those APIs to take advantage of the JSON model. And that's fine, you're in good company. I was there too, I've been through this. By moving your applications to DocumentDB, you get that flexibility of using the same JSON model for your application, your data storage, and even your database queries. You get that flexible schema that means you don't have to predefine that data model. And you get to recognize the full benefits of that easy to read, that language independent and lightweight JSON documents. This means that you write less code and your performance increases. By moving to DocumentDB, you also don't have to make sacrifices. You don't have to compromise on functionality. You don't have to compromise on performance, and you don't have to compromise on scale by using a service that wasn't designed from experience working with enterprise customers. It's purpose-built for customers almost entirely around the feedback that we get. So you have a tool that's expressly designed based on the purpose at hand. At its core, DocumentDB is designed to store, index, and query rich and complex JSON documents with high availability and scalability. You can retrieve nested documents or you can receive documents based on nested field values. You can do joins across collections. You can do very rich aggregation queries on this. So if you need that schema flexibility and the ability to index on that rich structured query doc or the rich structured to semi-structured document, DocumentDB is a great choice. You get 4 nines of durability or availability. It can handle tens of thousands of writes per second, millions of reads per second, and that storage grows all the way up to 64 TB without any interaction from you. DocumentDB supports MongoDB workloads, and it's compatible with the MongoDB APIs. It's a logical choice for MongoDB users who are trying to easily migrate to a fully managed document database service. Every use case is different, and definitely recommend that you reach out to your solution architect or your account team, or reach out to me if you have any questions about it, you want to know about these features, or even talk about our roadmap, because just like we saw a second ago of what we have built, we have some pretty cool things coming out in the future. Enterprises like Capital One have moved to DocumentDB, and they now move faster because they're focusing more on innovating on their customers' behalf and less about managing a database. Fresh Shop, they migrated their entire grocery e-commerce backend in less than a week without any changes to their database and to their code. They did change their database, they didn't change their code. Monkey Exchange migrated in less than 4 hours and changed their application endpoints over to DocumentDB and started using it. Habby, they've deployed DocumentDB, and now their team can scale, iterate, and quickly upgrade their games to improve that customer experience. And we have customers like ODX that was able to reduce their costs and completely eliminate those annual license renewals. Enterprises across all sectors, whether it's public, government, commercial, are moving to Amazon DocumentDB as their enterprise solution for JSON database. Definitely want to encourage you to go check out AWS Skill Builder and AWS certification. Over 500 free digital courses with AWS Skill Builder, 16 different languages. This is self-paced learning plans that can kind of teach you about some of these services. And then once you get comfortable with that, go check out certifications. I think that we have 11 certifications now. That's like the services, it's always growing. We might have 13, but those certifications range from foundational to professional, even to specialty courses like databases. We have our AWS certified community. It's a form that you can sign up for to do networking, ask questions. They even have challenges that you can get recognition and prizes from. But scan one or both of those codes to learn a little bit more. But thank you. Appreciate you all being here. Again, I love seeing people in person. I love seeing faces. I'm going to be out in the mezzanine area afterwards. I don't think we can do Q&A here. So if you have any questions, you want to know more, contact me there or find me in the mezzanine and complete the survey. Don't forget that. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.